Well, not too long ago, Kamala Harris decided to go to Africa. A mission from Joe Biden in the Joe Biden White House to stop Africa from becoming good buddies with China and Russia and China and Russia and the rest of forming a BRICS organization. On behalf of the West, Biden is doing whatever he can to keep France, keep England, and keep the United States greedy little fingers in Africa. But he's not going to go to Africa by himself. Why? Because Joe Biden is a bigot. He's a racist bigot. He don't want to deal with a whole bunch of Africans on stage. He don't even feel comfortable going to African church, man. He feel awkward. Especially if he's the only white guy. So they send Kamala Harris. They figure, well, Kamala's is the closest thing to black. We're going to, they'll accept her because we sold America the bill of good that she's the first black VP. She's the first Asian VP. Her mama is an Indian, full-blooded Indian, full-blooded high society India. Her dad was a diplomat that did business in Africa. Matter of fact, in this trip, a couple of countries say, hey, welcome home because your dad used to work for us. Your granddad used to work for us. So you're daughter of our country by default of your dad being a diplomat to our country. Because her dad was a high society diplomat in India. Her granddad. India. Not South Carolina. Not Houston, Texas. Not even Jamaica. India. Now, if you do a deep dive, I'm going to do it one day. You've been sold the bill of goods that she's pure black. If she got any black, it's probably 10%. Kamala's mom is full-blooded Indian. Her dad, Donald Harris, is Jamaican. Jamaican do not count as black. It is a black majority popular country, but a lot of the people in that country are white mixed with black. They're mixed. They're interracial. It's a lot of light-skinned Jamaicans. Some of them look white with dreadlocks. You got a lot of Indians in Jamaica, just like you got a lot of Indians in Ghana. You got black Ghanaians. You got Indian Ghanaians. Because all of them came down there for trade. Her great-grandfather, her dad's granddaddy, owned the parish, owned the plantation, and owned slaves. Scotch-Irish. White as white it can be. And gave daughter to her grandmother. This is part of the Finnegan family. She's a Finnegan by trade, by line. On her dad's side, the roots of her lineage go to white Irish, Scotch-Irish, the Finnegan family on her dad's side. The one that everybody say black. And the other side of her family goes all the way to high society, India. So I'm trying to figure out where they're getting this black and why they trying to sell this black and why they trying to sell it to Africa. Joe Biden went there, go around a whole bunch of African people because he just, he's scared, y'all. He's scared, y'all. And I get it. All right, so I want to get into, I was going through a bunch of articles. My sound wasn't off. All these articles about her going to Africa and what she's planning on doing and all the money she's planning on sending, blah, blah, blah. Basically to try to sweet talk. Willie Brown sweet talk. Montel Williams sweet talk. Show a little leg here and there to the African nations to get away from China and Russia. They're our enemies. They're going to do you no good. And continue to work with the people who haven't been doing you no good. Matter of fact, we've been working behind the scenes and under the scenes and on top of the scene with other nations to rape and strip you of your resources and only give you pennies for $1. And then we'll come around and tell you, you owe these other people money, but we going to bail you out. Well, you ain't bailing us out. Let me get into this, though. All right, so the first video I want to show is Kamala Harris drops down in Africa. Let's go.
Welcome all our young leaders, all the leaders. Thank you for this warm welcome. On behalf of my husband, the second gentleman of the United States, And of course, we bring you greetings from the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and the First Lady, Jill Biden. What an honor it is to be here in Ghana and on the continent of Africa. Today begins a week-long journey.
All right, fair use. This is from the New African Channel, and I've got a bunch of clips.
First here in Ghana, then on to Tanzania, and then Zambia. On behalf of the President and our entire nation, we bring you greetings, and we are looking forward to this trip as a further statement of the long and enduring and very important relationship and friendship between the people of the United States and those who live on the continent of Africa. I'm very excited about the future of Africa. I'm very excited about the impact of the future of Africa on the rest of the world, including the United States of America.
What if Africa don't want to have nothing to do with you, United States of America? Would you consider them an enemy because they don't want to do business with you? Because they've done business with you for so long and you just kicked them in the butt and stumped all over them, took advantage of them. Your diplomacy toward Africa has been pretty much bullish. You took out some of their greatest leaders and you funded rebel campaigns against those leaders, all in the name of American interests. Also, you can get somebody in office that's going to be friendly towards you to give them access, to give you access to their resources in exchange for a little bit of money when they don't really owe you a doggone thing and they don't need to give you nothing. And if they do, you need to pay full stock for it. Retail price. Matter of fact, jack up the price.
When I look at what is happening on this continent and the fact that the median age...
What's happening on the continent? Have you been all through the continent? No, this is your first time. You just stepped down in Africa. You haven't been to Africa since you was a little child on behalf of your granddaddy. What do you know about Africa? Have you been around? Have you seen some of the beautiful resorts and the beautiful beaches and the beautiful homes being built in Africa and the beautiful still green, pure oxygen landscape all across Africa and the beauty of Africa and the various animals and the various bugs and the various, I mean, you name it. Africa is beautiful up and down. But she's going to start spitting some weird talk to kind of degrade that, what I just said, but let's see.
Age is 19 years old. And what that tells us about the growth of opportunity, of innovation, of possibilities. I see in all of that great opportunity, not only for the people of this continent, but the people of the world. Especially when we understand that by the year 2050, we believe 1 in 4 people on Earth will be on the continent of Africa. So I am here to address some of the issues that relate to the partnership between this continent, its people, and the people of the United States, and to reinforce the work that we will continue to do together. Be that on addressing the climate crisis, to supply chains, to our work together on international rules and norms. In particular on this trip, I intend to do work that is focused on increasing investments here on the continent and facilitating economic growth and opportunity, specifically in the areas of economic empowerment of women and girls.
To facilitate. She wants to be in charge of handling the business in Africa. And then she want to promote human rights. Now look at where she's going with this. And now understand this. You just got human rights and you're not even good at human rights in your own country. And then you gonna come down here and tell people that you're going to work to facilitate this in Africa? Are you kidding me?
Empowerment of youth entrepreneurship, digital inclusion, and to support the work that must be done to increase food security, including adaptation to the effects of the climate crisis.
Now, my question, Ms. Harris, what have you been doing concerning that in these United States? Where's the business program that's going to help young black men start their own businesses? Where's the financial resources that you're going to pour out in that? But you're going to do that for Africa, right? African people, when they say they're going to do this stuff and they haven't did it in the United States, don't you buy it. You'll be a fool to buy it. The question is, have you done this in your own nation? And what is your success rate? Because we Africans don't like our time wasted. We're tired of the time wasting. We're on a whole new level of mission and getting things done. Gaddafi taught us that. Gaddafi taught us to unite and begin to build Africa without importing. If anything, we're going to be the strong import because the things that the world need, natural things that the world need, because everything's GMO'd, is right here in Africa. You need rice, is here. You need fruits and vegetables, is here. You need meats, is here. We got it all here. And you want to tell us that, man, girl, you don't sit down.
I look forward to my meetings with President Akufo-Addo, President Samia, and President Hichilema. We will build on the previous meetings I have had with each of them to strengthen democracy and good governance, promote peace and security, build on long-term economic growth, and strengthen our business ties.
Again, what have you done? How have you done that? And what is your track record of doing that in the United States? African leaders, you have to pose those questions. I can only trust you based on what you've already done in your own community and your own black, African black, native black, foundational black community. What have you done? Show me your paperwork. Do you got any receipts?
I also look forward during this visit to meet with entrepreneurs and artists and students and farmers to witness firsthand the extraordinary innovation and creativity that is occurring on this continent and inspiring the world. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and again, I'm so very excited to be here, and I thank you all for the very warm welcome. Thank you.
And this one I think is in with. Okay, so this is when she went through the slave docks, which she has no affiliation with. This, and she's gonna come back. She looked like she's been through, and she's crying, and and it really touched her heart when majority of her family never really tasted this. Again, her dad's side of the family is pretty much Scotch-Irish. Even though Donald Harris looked black, but you take a Ghanaian, or if you take, there's Indians that look black. So, like I said, I don't have the info on him. All I know is his mother was a Finnegan. And she's a Finnegan because she probably came, I think, and like I said, I'm going to do my research. I think his dad and his mom was mixed, or at least one of the two. The mom, I don't know if the dad was black and Scotch-Irish or Irish and Indian. And because of the Irish and Indian, he took on the Finnegan name and married her grandmother. But I don't get into that. All I know is this is laughable to me because I doubt if her family ever went through that, because most of her family were, majority of the family either was in India or come from most of her lineage. Let me go back to her lineage. Her lineage on her dad's side is rooted in slave ownership. And her mama's side is rooted as a elitist Indian from India. Let me keep going.
was immensely powerful and moving.
All right, so we got some acting going on here.
When we think about how human beings were treated by the hundreds of thousands in this very place that we now stand, the crimes that happened here.
Are you guys buying this? You can't be buying this. Because where was that same attitude when she kept the people in prison, mostly black people, and made them fight in forest fires to shave off time? Someone was forced to fight forest fires. When it was time to release people, she took her sweet time and doing the paperwork. Where was she? Where was she when she sided with the police department when they was out there cracking the head of black people on the streets? Where was she? Where was she when she was sitting up there saying, look, if your child missed school, I don't care what's going on. I'm coming to arrest you and your child because you're at fault for this. Not understanding what it's like to be a parent and what you have to go through dealing with a child that's growing up in 90s, drug dealing on the up and up, gang rivalry, blood crip on California. And you trying not to get in the game. And you know they're going to recruit you at the high school. And they're going to try to meet you on the way to school. And you try and do whatever you can to duck them. Not understanding none of that. Where was she? Where was all that pain? She's going to be crying over something in the past when she should be crying over something recently in the past and what's going on now. Where was she?
The blood that was shed here.
The blood?
There are dungeons here.
Yeah, the dungeon.
Where human beings were kept. Men, women, and children. They were kidnapped from their homes.
Now, if you tell the story through war, tribal wars, there were people that was caught in captivity. And instead of trying to hold them in a cell, they decided to sell them. They held them in the cell and they sold them for weapons, for money, for liquor, you name it. Give me some of that Western stuff. We'll give you some slaves. We'll give you some, they didn't call them slaves at that time, but we'll give you some prisoners. We'll sell our prisoners off to you. A lot of time it was just a trade-off. It wasn't really selling. It was a trade-off. We'll trade you all these amount of prisoners to work for you, to go wherever you're going, to do work for you in exchange for goods. Either way, it's not good. But she's devastated. Oh, God. I can't believe I'm seeing with my eyes. I got that camera on me, so I got to perform. I got to perform.
Were transported hundreds of miles from their homes, not really sure where they were headed, and they came to this place of horror. Some to die, many to starve and be tortured, women to be raped, before they were then forcibly taken on a journey thousands of miles from their home to be sold by so-called merchants and taken to the Americas, to the Caribbean.
And to America. But yet, you don't think black people deserve reparations. And you're not going to work hard just to do nothing for just black people. No. Man, if you don't miss me with these fake crocodile tears, girl, you've been hanging around the California or Hollywood people too much. Now here's her, I'm showing y'all just some footage of her in Africa. Did you see what our vice president was doing?
Joe Biden said at the U.S.-Africa Leaders
Waiting
Summit
for her
last
zaddy.
December, we're all in on Africa. We are all in.
You hear those claps? Very sporadical claps. Some people don't want to. They don't want to celebrate.
African nations play such a critical role on issues of global importance, issues that matter to the American people and to the world. Issues like food security, the climate crisis.
I'm so tired of her keep repeating these same things. Africa don't have a climate issue because Africa is mostly natural climate. Their climate is better than ours. Their air is better than ours. Everything is better than ours. And food, Africa has the ability to grow its own food and import and export their own food. There's nothing you can't grow in Africa. So get out of here. It's not the food. It's not a food issue. Africa don't lack food issue. You just need to leave Africa alone so they can produce their own food and give it to their people first. Sure, we got a lot of countries, a lot of poor countries in Africa that's lacking in natural food. But if you let Africa work together where they can work among each other, they can help out each other, just like we do with the states here in the United States. We feed off each other. You got most of the blue states financing most of the red states on a whole lot of issues, and it works well. We may not agree politically, but when it comes to the money going back and forth through taxes, it works out fine when it comes to taking care of most of the needs of America. Not like it should be, because we got too much homeless over here, not that much homeless over here, and we got to fix that. And we got housing prices skyrocketing, and America can stop that. They can stop people from getting thrown out of their home because somebody want to jack the rent up. That's why in New York, we got rent freezes here. You ain't jacking nothing up around here.
Public health and resilient supply chains.
She said the same thing at the beginning. She's going to continue to repeat this. She's memorized this, and now she's trying to stand there and look presidential and defiant about helping Africa by repeating the same crap over and over again that Africa is not having an issue with. America having an issue with it because we got these corporatists and these elites trying to hog up all the resources.
We're all in because African leadership is critical to global peace and security. And African nations are essential partners at the United Nations and in support of international rules and norms.
And yeah, you can't even get an African to speak up at a press conference without Jean Pierre just ignoring them. Letting everybody white go and everybody black go last or don't go at all.
We are all in because the fates of the American people and of America and the continent of Africa are interconnected and interdependent.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Because there are long-standing ties between our people. We have an intertwined history,
She's weaving that same point.
Of which is painful, and some of which is prideful, and all of which we must acknowledge, teach, and never forget.
That was a quick woo. That was good. Woo! Get out of here with that mess, lady. Get out of here with that mess. Here's another one we're going to go into.
Thank you both for taking the time.
Shout out to the African
Young
Channel.
from the New York Times. Madam Vice President, you have made clear that the message of this trip is centered on a collaborative future. At the same time, the Biden administration committed to calling out any foreign government that advanced anti-gay legislation or violates human rights. All three of the countries that you are visiting on this trip have advanced or proposed.
So we're gonna get a Western leader that's going to talk trash about Africa not going along with Western ideas when it come to give me a second. I'm running out of space for some reason. Should have did this live. Give me a moment. I got to hurry this up. It's not an African person. 9 times 10, it's a Western person that's trying to say, hey, you're dealing with these people who don't accept people from the LGBTQ being able to do what they want to do in public.
Anti-gay legislation. Has proposed a bill that would imprison those that engage in same-sex intercourse. Gay sex remains a crime in Tanzania, and same-sex relationships are outlawed in Zambia. What have you said to the president and plan to say to other leaders on this trip about the crackdown on human rights? And for the president as well, you've talked about the proliferation of terrorist groups across the region, as well as pirate activities along the Western African coast. What does the presence of the Wagner Group say about past U.S. support when it comes to security? What more do you need from the United States to combat this threat? And also, can you confirm that al-Qaeda has a presence currently in Ghana? Thank you.
I'll start. I have raised.
Now, he's making some harsh indictments in front of the president of Ghana about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is in the United States too, dude. How do you think all this stuff got planned when it came to the towers going down? It was Al-Qaeda or ISIS here. Al-Qaeda here. Not ISIS, but Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda could be anywhere, man. Oh, boy.
This issue. And let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues.
To make advances on Willie Brown and make advances on other men in political positions. Let's be clear on that.
Issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting
Ooh, she didn't say QTI.
The freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change.
Yes. What's the name?
Kano Youngs of the New York Times.
Zolan. Mr. Young, so thank you for the question. First of all, we don't have any such legislation here in Ghana. A bill has been proposed to the Parliament of Ghana, which has all kinds of ramifications, which is now being considered by the Parliament. It hasn't been passed, so the statement that there is legislation in Ghana to that effect is not accurate. The bill is going through the Parliament. It's going through the Parliament. The Attorney General has found it necessary to speak to the committee about it regarding the constitutionality or otherwise of several of its provisions, and the Parliament is dealing with it. At the end of the process, I will come in. But in the meantime, the Parliament is dealing with it. And I have no doubt that the Parliament of Ghana will show, as it has done in the past, first of all, its sensitivity to human rights issues, as well as to the feelings of our population, and will come out with a responsible response to the proposed. The legislation was a legislation that is being provided as a private member's bill. This is not an official legislation of the.
First of all, dude, you're the president of Ghana. Who in the hell is he to come asks questions concerning about what goes on in Ghana when his buddy's going to get on the plane and go back to New York. So first of all, you ain't got to answer him. He's just doing that as a proxy for the United States and Kamala Harris because they don't like the fact that you are not promoting Western values. And I get it. Some Western values are crap. And some of these values, the way people promote it is a little bit too aggressive, downright bullish, and downright mafia style. I get it. But that is your country. And we got to respect your rules and regulation in your country. We cannot tell you what to do, but we think if we can get our hands in you and give you money, we can tell you what to do. And you have to stand 10 toes down and say, no, we're going to do what you did. Because you just not too long ago, less than 10 years ago, came around allowing this stuff to happen. So the nerves of you to say something about us, man, if you don't sit your behind down, you just started. Black people didn't even have full civil rights 50 years ago. Still having to fight for equal rights. And you're going to come out here and tell us, and we've been in existence way before your country, about human rights and democracy. Get out of here, man. He's being nice, man.
Government, but it is one that has been mooted by a handful of private members. So we will see what the final outcome of it. But my understanding from the recent discussion of the committee, the substantial elements of the bill have already been modified as a result of the intervention of the Attorney General. We will see what the final outcome will be, and that is the stage at which I will also have the opportunity to prevent.
And if they do vote it in, it is your job to rally the people to make them change their mind on it. That's democracy. If the people say no for now, then the people say no. You got to continue to keep chopping down on it until you finally, because it was the same process here in the United States, and we call ourselves the king of democracy. Look what we had to go through just to get equal rights for black people. Look at how long it took. It wasn't an overnight thing. And don't you think Africa is going to do an overnight thing on allowing what we consider an overnight thing to happen? Again, less than 10 years ago, there was no gay marriage. I mean, I think of Key West and a couple other states, but across the board, no, it was like a taboo. The nerves of Westerners trying to tell other countries what to do. And this is what makes people not like America, man. We're always in somebody else's business.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to share your comments below.
All right. Shout out to African Channel. We still got a couple more. This is just her visiting. Then I'm going to go into some of the things that Africans had to say about
Thank you both for taking the time. Zolan Kano, Al-Qaeda has a presence.
Let me and that
we
will
went
not.
through that. All right. We went through that. All right. So. All right. So now you got her. You saw her going into Africa, making her speeches, making her commitment, and talking about investing in Africa, saying that they're all in. Then you had white Western media, not even a black person in Western media. At least thing you could have did was have a black person in Western media that's from Africa, that's tied into to that particular publication. At least thing you could have had. Didn't no, you had a white person that's in the middle of Africa trying to call out Africa and see what the president, vice president going to say and see what he's going to say. Trying to put that president in the spot. And I know some of you people saying they need to put him in the spot. You got to understand. They are not Americans. It took us all these years to get to where we need to go. They're not going to get to where we are overnight. And you pressuring them, it's going to backfire. It's not going to cause them to want to be more like you. It's going to cause them to resent you. The nerves of you claiming to be the king of democracy, coming in here, telling us how we should do how we should run this country. The nerves of you. Just because you're big, bold, and you got money, and you probably got things that we want or need, which we really don't want or need. We got an education system. We got healthcare here. We got all that. We got decent doctors, you know. All right, so what I'm going to do now is go into the next video. Africa had a response. And most of those responses are not favorable toward Kamala Harris or the United States. Some of these things are going to be directly toward Kamala Harris and the United States government, and some of them are going to be directly toward the United States government alone. This is how not only how Africa sees the United States, but how other parts of the world sees the United States, and how parts of the world has a sour taste. We used to be the beacon of light of America, but now the beacon of light to the whole entire world. But the way we gangster style, Gangnam style do business, most of the people don't want our form of democracy because we have a foul form of democracy, a stinking type of democracy. Ain't nothing pure about it. And the world sees it, and Africa sees it. And here are some of their responses. Fair use, YouTube. Fair use.
Democracy is a government in which all the people participate, in which the interests of the people reign supreme, in which their country's sovereignty, their country's honor is at the top. It seems that this month is a month of democracy discourse in the world. At the end of this month, there will be a conference in Lusaka, or a summit in Lusaka, Zambia, my country, led by the United States. They have come to Southern Africa to teach us democracy. A country that was opposed to our liberation, a country that supported colonial regimes, the apartheid regime in South Africa, the white racist minority regime in Zimbabwe, now Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, the Portuguese colonial governments in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde, today is coming to Africa to teach us about democracy. A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world, a country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world, the killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy. A country that has been built on brutal force, on enslavement of other human beings, on the humiliation of Africans, the exploitation of Africans, the plunder of Africa, today is coming to teach us about democracy. That's the arrogance, the imperialist arrogance, the racist arrogance that we are subjected to. We cannot have democracy where there is hegemony of the strongest, mightiest imperialist power. We cannot have democracy where a country's resources, a country's decisions are dictated to by another country. A country that is dominated by another country cannot be democratic. A country that lacks sovereignty cannot be democratic. A people that cannot decide for themselves cannot be democratic. A colony, a neo-colony cannot be democratic. That's why today, even at the United Nations, membership is on the basis of sovereignty. Only sovereign nations can be members of the United Nations, because only sovereign nations can decide for themselves. A colony cannot be a member of the United Nations. It's not by accident. It's not a mistake. If you have no respect for the dignity of others, if you have no respect for the sovereignty of other countries, you cannot claim to be a champion of democracy. They used to say, all roads lead to Rome. Today we can confidently say, all roads to progress, all roads to what is better for humanity lead to Beijing. This is a country.
So you can't say because Ukraine has been invaded that suddenly sovereignty is important, but it was never important for Palestine. It's very peculiar. If you believe in international law truly, then wherever sovereignty is infringed, it must apply. And this is the point we've been making, that we use the framework of international law unequally, depending on who is affected. And we are arguing that that must change. And one of the interesting changes that has occurred is the sudden movement, because Russia has invaded Ukraine, that we say, okay, let's not allow the Security Council to just have the veto and let it pass. We take it to the General Assembly. When some of us had been calling for the General Assembly to have a greater say, we never enjoyed support. But suddenly today, see, that's where international law begins to mean nothing. Because for some, we see it as a cheating, and for others, we see it as a benefit. So our argument is, let's revise the international multilateral system to ensure that we observe that post-1948 has arrived.
Yes! The Vice President of the United States of America, not Abu Abu, and the husband, they've been in Ghana for the past 2 days, you know, doing their sons. And the day of her arrival, we are say, Obiya on the master, hey, bro, your airport security for they brought their own security. They brought their own security and subjected your airport security, your top security gurus here to what? Security scrutinization, ladies and gentlemen. And I say, hey, come and pass here. Let me see your pocket. Oh! You see the way if they travel like they do for you, so no they do for them. But I understand. If they do for at the back, me, I don't mind. I mean, I don't have anything malicious for me. So you can search me and search me. But you see the same way, oh, they but I thought say, oh, say we are the one hosting you, so we are supposed to search you. How are you the one bringing your security people and your cars and sons to come? Hey! GHANA. GHANA. So yes, that is what happened at the airport.
I think there is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They're appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, and with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It is a continent of vast, arable and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We've seen it. These young men who are showing so much resilience and ingenuity in crossing the Sahara, finding ways to go across with rickety boats across the Mediterranean to really, those energies, we want to have those energies working inside our countries. And we're going to have those energies working in our countries if we begin to build systems that tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity are right here with us. Migration and the movement of people is being presented in a manner which suggests that somehow it's a new phenomenon. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as man, the movement of people. And it has always been linked to the same thing. The failure of where you are to provide you with an opportunity, so you move somewhere else. Those of you who are familiar with 19th century European history would know that the biggest wave of immigration in 19th century Europe, the latter part of it, came from Ireland and from Italy. Waves upon waves, generations of Italians and the Irish people left their countries to seek the American paradise, largely because Ireland was not working, Italy was not working. Today, you don't hear it. Italian young people are in Italy. Irish young people are in Ireland. We want young Africans to stay in Africa. And how are they? And it means that we have to get away from this mindset of dependence. This mindset about what can France do for us. France will do whatever it needs to do for its own sake. And when those coincide with ours, tant mieux, as the French people say. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries. What are the institutions that work, that would allow us to have good governance, to have accountable governance, to make sure that the monies that are placed at the disposal of leaders are used for the interests of the state and not for those of the leaders, to have systems that allow for accountability, that allow for diversity, that allow for people to be able to express themselves and contribute to fashioning the public will and the public interest. Our concern should be with what do we need to do in this 21st century to move Africa away from being cap in hand and begging for aid, for charity, for handouts. The African continent, when you look at its resources, should be giving monies to other places. We have huge wealth on this continent. In our own country of Ghana. And we need to have a mindset that says, we can do it. Others have done it. We can also do it.
Now, Ghana's president said we need to stop depending on that. He's only doing that to see what the board would do. Whatever the board do, that's what he's going to do. See, he's trying to practice a form of democracy. It's what you want. If you want me to take money from the United States for whatever reason, I will. But give me a reason why. Because I don't think we need to take any money from anybody. And I understand America might get upset and hurt and be kind of ticked off because we rejected their money. But sometimes we need to do that. See, America has become the world's pimp. Or the world's loan shark. I'm going to give you this, but I want something in return. Let's get into some of this stuff. Ghana and Africa need to cut ties with the IMF. Ghana don't need the financial structure of the Western world. Ghana and all of Africa has the ability to create a financial structure way better than the IMF because they got the real deal finances. Finances is nothing without something backing it. A paper dollar is nothing without backing it. We had the gold standard and we lost that. We had oil and we stopped producing that. Our paper, our money isn't worth nothing. Nothing but a bunch of notes that we try to portray as power chips when it's really power doo-doo chips. We have nothing to back the dollar. Africans come up with paper. They got all kind of resources to back that paper. That's why Gaddafi said we're coming off of the franc. And the French people did not like it. We're coming off that crap. We're going to join forces and we're going to all do business on gold. And if you ain't got gold, then I'm sorry, brother, you're going to get hurt because you ain't. Gold is real money. And we got gold dinero. And we're going to do business with real money, not that paper crap. And boy, the French presidents and leaders and all plotted to work with Hillary Clinton and the United States, even Barack Obama, to get that man in office because he was going to cripple the IMF. He was going to cripple the Western financial structure. And even to this day, Ghana, you don't need to be going to BRICS, China, or Russia. I get it. You want to join forces, become your own superpower on the opposite side to kind of bring a balance between the superpowers of the West, England, United States, Canada, South America, to go with the superpowers of the West. Of the East, which a lot of South Americans are going the way of BRICS too. I get it. But Africa, you need to be your own competition in between the two. You don't have to attach yourself to neither one of them. But who am I? I'm just a little old poor soul with no common sense. That's all I be.
Once we have that mindset, we will see it as a liberating factor for ourselves. We keep talking about how it was that Koreans, Malaysians, Singaporeans, who got their independence at the same time as us. We're told of that at the time of Ghanaian independence, per capita Ghanaian income was higher than that of Korea. Today, Korea is part of the first world. So is Malaysia. So is Singapore. What happened?
When it comes to Africa, I'm sure many people in this audience will have made the same observations. I think we must take responsibility and accept our failures in dealing with these matters. For example, relating to what President Obasanjo has just said, on the case of Boko Haram, or you can use that for many other cases. For me, when I'm watching on television, and I find our leaders who should have been working together all along to address these problems that commonly affect their countries, wait until they are invited to go to Europe to sit there and just, it's like they are made to sit down and address their problems. Why does anybody wait for that? What image does it even give about us, about Africa? In fact, the image it gives is that we are not there to even address these problems. We are there for a photo opportunity. We are happy to sit there in Paris with the President of France and address, and just talk about addressing problems. It doesn't make sense that our leaders cannot get themselves together to address problems affecting our people. It doesn't.
And go to meet with any other leader in the world without an agenda. That simply doesn't happen.
Right.
So what makes the US think that they can engage African leaders without an agenda? Come to Washington, let me tell you what I want to do for you. Come to Washington, let me tell you what you need to do in your country. That game is an old game.
Right.
It's not going to work anymore. To be honest with you, if I'm to speak the truth, I hope a lot of heads of states don't come, because it is an insult. It is an abuse of the African leaders. It's a disrespect of the African leaders. Where is the agenda? Please respect the African leaders. Do unto them what you would want done unto you. If the United States, for example, let's look at this particular meeting, this particular summit. There was no defined agenda. There has never been defined agendas whenever they meet with African countries as individual countries. It's always the United States setting the agenda, the United States setting the policies, and the United States telling the Africans about the policies. That is no way to have any meaningful engagement. If you take, for example, the FOCAC meeting that was held between China and the African heads of state, way in advance, the issues were clearly defined. The agenda was going to focus on trade. It was going to focus on aid. It was going to focus on investments. The African heads of states were engaged in the discussion, in the planning. The outcomes were clearly defined with a way forward in terms of follow-up. It was a fruitful meeting that addressed the issues that needed to be addressed between not only African countries individually with China, but also Africans collectively with China. There is no published agenda. There are no issues that have been presented to the African heads of states. Africans have not been asked to engage in terms of creating the agenda and making sure that when the African heads of states come to Washington, the outcomes, the issues to be discussed are going to be meaningful outcomes with follow-up and deliverables that are going to be beneficial to both. It remains a one-sided conversation with the United States telling the Africans the agendas and the policies. The Africans are not on the table to discuss issues pertaining to us, wherein lies the problem. And the reason that continues to be the case, what underscores that is the disrespect for Africans. I repeated it. I complained about it repeatedly. It is a serious problem. The United States must understand that Africans are not going to take it anymore. If you don't treat the Africans fairly, United States is going to see itself slowly losing ground to China, to Russia, to all other nations, because without respecting the Africans, without treating the Africans as equal, without understanding that exploitation and abuse of Africa simply cannot continue. This meeting, this summit, is going to be yet another gathering with no outcomes, no deliverables until the next summit. I'm sorry, but the disrespect of the Africans is at the bottom of it all.
Something can be done, but it has to be leaders to work towards that and avoid the catastrophe that, like we are seeing or have seen, or that has already happened in South Sudan. But of course, the unfortunate part is that the most majority who suffer are the innocent people who have nothing to do with it.
A lot about the need to change our narrative and tell our own good story. Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, nothing succeeds like success. If we work at it, if we stop being beggars and spend Africa's monies inside the continent, Africa would not need to ask for respect from anyone. We would get the respect we deserve. Over 30 years ago, one of America's most prestigious Ivy League universities offered a course in Mandarin, which for years had virtually no takers. Today, there is standing room only. And it is not because the course is any easier. It is because the position of China has changed. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was nowhere near where it is today. China does not ask for anyone for respect now. She does not need it. Let us make our continent the prosperous and joyful place it should be, and the respect.
Don't need to be invited anywhere to go and address our problems without first inviting ourselves to come together to tell each other the actual truth that we must tell each other about our serious problems. So, I mean, again, look at the problem of South Sudan, indeed. The first problem was about this country and the people there wanting to be independent. They got independence. Now that turned into a problem. How? So you have one war being fought, waged to be independent, then you have to fight another when you have achieved independence. Just fighting among themselves. Why? So some of these underlying root causes should and could have been addressed by the leaders there. Whatever happened, whoever was wrong, that's not the issue. It is still the responsibility of leaders. If they can't resolve the matters themselves, why not? Why not call upon neighbors to say, come and help? We have a problem here. Maybe there is a problem between the president and the vice president. And if they can't resolve it, and each one thinks he's the one who is right and the other is wrong, and they are going to divide the army and government and everybody else to go on either side and start fighting. Well, I think in between the time that starts and when it actually happens,
Welcome to Asian Quick Take. I am Jacob. A 3-day US-Africa summit came to a close December 15th. A White House statement said the U.S.-Africa summit in Washington underscored the U.S. commitment to broaden and deepen its partnership with African countries, institutions, and people. The Biden administration plans to work closely with Congress to invest at least $55 billion in Africa over the next 3 years. The United States will also appoint a new special representative of the president to follow through on the summit's commitments. President Joe Biden did not mention China in his speech at the U.S.-Africa summit, and a White House spokesman refused to acknowledge that the summit was intended to counter Chinese influence in Africa. However, international opinion is not optimistic about the summit, believing that the U.S. has suddenly changed its previously neglected attitude and started to pay attention to Africa, with the real intention of turning Africa into an arena for great power games and pointing the finger at China. Africa remains vital to global powers because of its fast-growing population, rich natural resources, and large voting power in the United Nations. The Biden administration views China as the most important economic and military adversary of the United States. Africa is strategically important at a time when the United States is reorienting its foreign policy to focus more on China. Washington seeks deeper diplomatic and commercial engagement with African countries to counter China's rising influence on the continent. The Council on Foreign Relations noted that the U.S.-Africa summit aims to underscore the U.S. commitment to the continent, as China is deepening its ties with Africa. In recent years, Washington has been criticized for its relative lack of engagement with Africa. Africa is increasingly a site of great power competition, but U.S. investment in Africa is far lower than in China. According to a report this year by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the presence of U.S. companies in Africa is not only lower than that of Chinese companies, but in some respects even lower than that of countries such as Turkey. For too long, U.S. relations with Africa have been neglected and a trust deficit has emerged, the effects of which are difficult to overcome. Former AU representative to the U.S., Alekana Chikhamburi Kuhio, believes there is little hope for a U.S.-Africa summit. She said U.S. officials undermine the relationship between Africa and Washington by treating Africans as if they need help or need to be told what to do. The U.S. needs to stop doing that and respect Africans. She believes the U.S.-Africa summit will be a failure unless Americans treat Africans as equals. The Biden administration started the second U.S.-Africa summit with a trust deficit, but that's exactly what the U.S. West, which is used to thinking in terms of hegemony, likes to do. In their view, offering money in exchange for the goodwill of Africa, if they cannot exchange for what they want, they will use force to rob. Bloomberg reported that Biden welcomed African leaders to reverse the image of the U.S. neglecting Africa. Biden is trying to change the perception among Africans that the U.S. is neglecting the continent as China and Russia move into Africa. But U.S. officials acknowledge they face an uphill battle to convince African leaders they are committed to reversing years of U.S. neglect of Africa. The U.S. is trying to build friendly relations with Africa at a time of major global power realignments, especially as the crisis in Ukraine became a catalyst for the U.S. to draw in friends against China and Russia. When South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Pandor met with U.S. Secretary of State Blinken in August, she criticized the West for adopting a condescending and bullying attitude toward Africa. She made it clear that South Africa has different views from the U.S. on China, Ukraine, and Israel-Palestine. China's success in Africa is particularly irritating to Washington. Over the past 20 years, China has expanded its influence on the African continent. China's direct involvement in Africa through loans, major infrastructure and technology projects has made it harder for other countries, such as the United States, to compete with it. In fact, African countries and populations view cooperation with China more favorably. A 2022 survey of African youth showed that some 77% of African youth consider China to be the most influential foreign power in Africa. It is already a fact that the BRICS partnership brings prosperity to the African continent. U.S. aid to Africa is less about assistance and rehabilitation than it is about handouts and intimidation, with political strings attached. Biden pledged $55 billion in aid money to Africa over the next 5 years, And regardless of whether this is enough money in terms of US policy stability, Biden has only 2 years left in office. But making a promise for the next 5 years looks like an empty glove anyhow. The US-Africa summit is just a political farce in which the US indulges in the illusion of world domination and unilaterally demands that Africa follow the strategy of great power competition. African countries are scared away by the obscene power of the US. Africa's desire to sever its ties with China is a delusion that cannot be realized. It's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel to support. See you next time.
Should America be dictating to us the rules under which we should engage with other countries? If America can give itself the right to participate in the democratic activities of Africa, what gives it the right to curtail other countries from doing the same? The LGBTQI position. As the Patriotic Front, we beseech Zambians, all of us Zambians, not to allow the United States of America to impose its values in Zambia.
Report. Don't be intimidated by any person. Our friends just passed their law in Uganda. We may not go the way they have gone because our constitution is very clear as to the direction we should move. And so we'll be guided by that. Because if we pass any law against the constitution, it's unconstitutional. So we have to do that. As the vice president just did, is it yesterday? I mean, these things should not be tolerated. That is undemocratic. What is democracy? That somebody else will have to dictate to me as to what is good and what is bad? Unheard of. Because we have decided to devalue ourselves and go a-begging. Come on. We have more than enough. God has created more than enough for every person. It's just because you are looking at somebody else's share, not yours. We have enough in the world. The bill will be passed. This is the word to His Excellency the President. There is no way he can intervene. That answer he gave. That is now before Parliament. And when he gets to a stage that he will come, hey, please. This is legislation. This is not execution. Wait until we pass it and then we direct you to execute it. That is when you come in. That is why we are representatives of the people. So in terms of law, which is part of policy, we finalize it. And then the executive now have the authority to implement it, to execute it. Let's get this clear. Once this bill is before here, he is not in charge. I am in charge.
American government are a bunch of cowards, and that they have no right to talk about human rights because they're the biggest abusers of human rights. Child rights are equally human rights. And yesterday, 2 hours after that press conference with the president, a 28-year-old gun woman walked into an American school and killed 3 American children and killed 3 American teachers. It's the rights, one of the fundamental basic rights of any human being is the right to life. The American government, in which Kamala Harris is vice president, is failing to take decisive action on gun control. And so people who should not have access to weapons are having access to assault rifles and killing innocent children and teachers in America. And the vice president of that country wants to come and teach us human rights. I mean, the irony of it. She's a person of color. But for being vice president, what happened to George Floyd could easily have happened to her, or any of the several people who have been killed in America by errant white policemen. which has led to the Black Lives Matter issue. If people have to demonstrate to let the American government know that Black Lives Matter, they need help from us. I've stated on record that myself and my colleagues are very willing to engage the American government and the US Congress to help them shape laws that will clamp down on gun violence, because they really have need for it. But it's the hypocrisy of the US, where they call homosexuality a human rights issue in Africa, but yet they are doing business with countries where homosexuality is frowned upon. Over $1 billion of military hardware is sold to Qatar almost on a yearly basis. In Qatar, homosexuality is punished by death, not imprisonment. Why are they not threatening Qatar? One of the biggest trading partners of the United States government is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, it's punished by death. Why are they not threatening them? Why are they not threatening Russia? Then they come to Ghana and Africa and they want to come and threaten us with LGBTQ. The American government is a bunch of hypocrites. If they really want to flex their muscle, they should go and flex their muscle on Russia, India, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the places where they are selling weapons to.
Per se, it's the interests of the Americans that are being threatened with a world that is more equal, that is more fair, that is more just. They can't survive in that world because their methods of existence are based on plundering other nations, on humiliating other nations, on exploiting other nations. It sets one humble nation against the other. When it doesn't have a hand in it, it doesn't work to resolve those conflicts, it works to perpetuate those conflicts. When the world is divided, it becomes easier to exploit. It becomes easier to plunder. This is the country that benefits from wars. It prospers from wars. It creates wars as a business. If no conflict arises naturally, they create it. Look at Iraq today.
20th anniversary of...
20th anniversary. What is happening to the Iraqi oil money? When Iraq sells oil, all the money goes to the USA. Is Iraq independent? Is Iraq sovereign? Iraq today is a colony of the USA. They say, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Does the USA do unto others as it would like them to do on itself? Look at what they did to Saddam Hussein. Look what they did to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Look at what they do to other people's leaders. Look even at the attitude, the arrogance towards other people. They never respect the leaders of other countries. China is working to free other people and free itself from being plundered, from being humiliated. Part of the hatred for China is racism. They cannot accept that a country that is non-white can surpass them economically and in so many areas of human achievements, of human endeavor. They can't accept that. But it is happening, it's unstoppable.
See, Putin is welcomed here, and no one is going to arrest Putin. If needs be, we'll go and fetch Putin from the airport to his meeting. He will finish all his meetings, we'll take him back to the airport. We're not going to be told by these hypocrites of the International Criminal Court who know the real violators of human rights, who know the murderers of this world. That former Prime Minister of Tony Blair admitted that they made a horrible mistake when it comes to Saddam Hussein. They've not been charged today. Bush is still there. They've not been charged till to date. And then Obama killed Gaddafi. And then nothing has happened. We're here today with Libya being destroyed and unable to recover because of America. We know very well that where NATO gets involved, Those are terrorists. We know very well where the US says we are going in to install peace. That place will never know peace as long as America has visited that place. So we don't want ICC's hypocrisy to apply here in our country. President Putin is welcomed. We know our friends. We know the people who liberated us. We know the people who supported us. In Kutokonaval, the weapons that were used in Kutokonaval that led to the liberation of South Africa were coming from Russia. Russia supplied us with weapons in Kutokonaval. Cuba supplied us with soldiers. And
you've seen what African leaders think of the United States, including Kamala Harris, including Joe Biden, but just the country alone. The nerves of us to try to sweet talk and try to buy African friendships. The nerve of French and any other country, including China, including Russia. But they're not doing all that. But we're trying to do that because we're jealous that Africa is leaning toward the people who they're antagonistic to. Africa. They're antagonistic toward Russia. They're antagonistic to China. They're antagonistic to Brazil. They're antagonistic to Venezuela. Why? Because they have something we got and we have no way to get in it. And what we do is we do colonization. We call it regime change, but it's still colonization. We did it in beautiful Libya, beautiful Iraq, beautiful Iran. I'm talking these countries were beautiful until America decided to declare war on it. Syria was a beautiful place. Now, I can't say anything about the foreign leaders because America always paint these foreign leaders as horrible dictators, but would never paint themselves as horrible dictators. And how we hire private firms and everything to murder and to delete these leaders all so we can have somebody that's in our favor, that's solid, as Joe Biden would say, to do our bidding in that country and give us access to there. Libya, beautiful place, good place. Yeah, they had Muammar Gaddafi. He wasn't all that of a saint. Nobody is. But those people were living okay. Now it's destroyed. The man was sharing the wealth with the people. Capitalism here in America won't share nothing with nobody. And his brother at the end was the icing on the cake, indicting the United States, saying, you ain't gonna touch Putin. It was that man who gave us the weapon to liberate ourselves in South Africa. You didn't do nothing. Where were you? They gave us the weapon to liberate ourselves. You didn't do nothing. And you want us to allow you to just demonize this man when you did this and when you did that and you funded the coups and you tried to topple our government and you left a lot of our great countries unstabilized. The hypocrisy. And now you fear that we're going to have a relationship with people who you're antagonistic to and that we don't know no better. That you need to give us a strong talking to. Man, if you don't get out our face, we know what we're doing. We don't need China. We don't need Russia. We use China. We use Russia. We use BRIC to our own benefit. At the end of the day, we can crush you both. But we're going to work with those who want to work with us. Not somebody who want to work with us at their convenience. We don't need your money. We'll take it. If you want to give it out, I take it. But understand this. That don't give you no leverage over us because we don't need your money. You still need what we got at the end of the day. We can produce all the products in the world. We can produce all the farm fruits and vegetables of the world, including stuff in your own country. We can grow it too. We can have the world at the feet of Africa if we want to. And guess what? We want to. We're tired of this hand-me-down. You thinking that you giving us a handout mean you get a hand in. You're not going to get that. It's time for Africa to rise up. And I'm telling Africa, don't mind you doing business with the East, West, whatever, whoever you do business with, make sure you're growing you. Africa first. Feed the people in your country first. Give the people in your country jobs first. Make sure your people have social programs that's going to carry them out throughout the week when they're not at that level yet. Continue to give them stellar education. Get out of the colonial system of education and teach these people true world history. Uncut, untethered, pure. Be the greatest nation in this world. Be the greatest continent in this world. The United States was the greatest continent in this world till we became condescending, greedy, arrogant, bastards. And we need to repent for our ways so we can remain to be side by side with Africa, doing the will of the people of the world versus the will of ourselves. Rise up, Africa. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm Bob Brown with the Bobby Brown Show. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Make sure that notification bell is set to always. If you'd like to donate to Bob TV, get a brother a cup of coffee, whatever. Bada boom, bada bang, sangria, glass of wine, whatever. You can go hit that information up here. Through my PayPal. Your gifts of love is really appreciated. I want you to understand that I love you more than I love myself. And let me tell you something, I love myself. And I just want you to grow, prosper, be all you can be. Don't let this world get you down. You are more, you're bigger than this world. And understand this, this country, this world has been in existence for millions of years. What make you think these idiot leaders are going to cause it to not be around? Even if we went through a nuclear holocaust, which I'd never want, the earth's still going to be here. And the earth is going to still be going through growing pains. It ain't going nowhere. We may go somewhere, but it ain't going nowhere. I'll let you later. Peace.